G'day. Now, in the great debate about education, it is important to know what the education system is supposed to produce, so that we can assess other things by relating them to the model and drawing comparisons so that we can lay down guidelines, general parameters, rough outlines, working briefs and topics for further discussion. Now, in order to assist in the discussion and perhaps pave the way for tomorrow's leaders, I've decided to make myself available as an example of what education can do. Now, when I was born, I realised pretty well immediately that I knew practically nothing. This worried me, and I went about the laborious business of acquiring knowledge with a passion rarely seen in the post-war era. And out of me many years' schooling, I learnt the following things. The capital of Peru is either Lima or Lisbon, and the one that isn't is the capital of either Norway or Oslo. If you want to multiply something by 11, you add the numbers together and put the answer in the middle. For instance, 34 times 11 is 374. Although if it adds up to more than 10, like 96 times 11 would, then you'd probably have to take the answer away from something, and I'm not actually sure what you'd take it away from. People look a little bit silly if you sneak up behind them and belt them very hard in the back of the knees. My auntie's pen is on the table. Earth has not anything to show more fair, dull would he be of soul who could pass by a sight so touching in its majesty. Ships, towers, something or other, and steeples lie open under the fields and to the sky. The ploughman homeward plods his weary way, the something or other fearful symmetry. John Gilpin was a citizen of credit and renown, a train band captain eke was he. The whole lot of things beginning with G, Limpopo River, is an awfully good example of something or other. Alliteration, possibly. Can't be sure. I before E, except after C. A mo, a mass, a mat, a marmus, a bismus, a bonghole. Osmosis is the passage of something or other through something called a semi-permeable membrane, although what that is, I shudder to think. For every force, there's something else. Probably another force or something for all I know. Sigmund Freud had a dog named Pavlov, who was named after a pudding. Now, dipping even further into the fabulous cornucopia of knowledge, we discover the following priceless baubles. You always sign yourself yours faithfully at the end of a business letter, which, as I recall, is a letter to a coal company. And you used to actually write your address and the date so that they sloped down on a bit of an angle. I think that's been phased out now with decimalisation or something. Nylon stockings are made out of coal, somehow. Although how they do it, I can't quite recall. It's all to do with carbon bonding, which is somehow mixed up with organic chemistry. The name of a substance in organic chemistry tells you how many carbon bonds it contains. Ethane's got 2, I think. 2, perhaps, lumps, I suppose, for every, maybe, gallon of water or something. Although what the exact formula for stockings is, I don't know. When a frog is dissected, if you pick out a spot on the floor and just look at it and think about a football match or something, you'll probably get through it without being sick. No one else will notice you. They've all picked spots off on the wall or the scalpel or the back of someone's head. Don't worry about it. She'll be Jake. 2 of the most important aspects of Pride and Prejudice by Jane Austen, and they have very great bearing on the question, are pride and prejudice. Pride, as exemplified in somebody or other, and prejudice, which is personified by somebody or other else. Darcy rings a bit of a bell, or the Great White Whale or someone, I just can't recall. Photosynthesis is a process whereby plants convert energy from the sun, which is light, I suppose, into pollen, I think. Tsar Alexander, or Nicholas I, or the second, or perhaps it was the third, I think there were 3 Alexanders, emancipated the serfs in 1800 and something or other. 1861 springs to mind, but I think that was perhaps when my brother had his tonsils out. Anyway, this event took place in Russia. Abraham Lincoln had a black beard and was found in a log cabin in some bulrushes somewhere, and he said that democracy was government by the people, for the people and of the people, which we know from our Latin means that democracy is either dative or ablative, or possibly something else. And Lincoln was actually assassinated in a theatre by somebody Booth, who might have had something to do with the Salvation Army, I think. Or maybe he was the bloke that invented the telephone box. I just can't remember now. Aside from Lincoln, just about everyone in history died of syphilis, although there are 1 or 2 notable exceptions. Shelley, of course, whose wife wrote Star Wars or something, he drowned. And Joan of Arc, of course, who was shot for spying during the First World War. Sound moves about the place in the form of waves. I don't know why, it just does. There are short waves and long waves and even the very occasional tearful farewell. And they travel faster than light waves. No, that's right, that's wrong. They travel slower than light waves. Light travels faster than sound, except after C. and they can bounce off certain objects, these sound waves, and this would appear to account for echoes. Of course, they bounce better off some objects than off others. They don't bounce very nicely off carpet, but good examples of things they do bounce off very well include tiled bathrooms, tunnels under railway stations, deserted grandstands, and Tony Staley. Now, before we go any further, I have a letter here from a person who claims to have learned a whole lot of things at school that I've not only never heard of, but in some cases I find totally unacceptable. For starters, this character informs me that the way to calculate the distance around a circle is pi r squared. Now, I'm not saying this is completely insane, but on the other hand, I'm not sure that I can go along with it either. It just seems a little bit silly for me, as if anybody would want to know the distance around a circle anyway. And what r might be, I'm wily enough not to ask. And if pi really is 22/7, I want to know why. I'm not prepared to just take these things on trust. Question everything, I was always told. And when I did, I was encouraged to continue me inquiries while doing me justly renowned impression of a staple in the boss's office. Anyway, I don't see why this character isn't prepared to find the distance around a circle by the time-honoured method of adding up the cosine of the sum of the squares on the other two sides. As if that's not bad enough, I'm then informed that on the bridge at Avignon, everyone dances all around. Now, this I'm not going to argue with. This is just crazy enough to be true. But the statement, c'est magnifique, mais ce n'est pas la guerre, which, according to my recommendations, means it is magnificent, but it is not the railway station, seems to me to be entirely pointless, and if this is what new maths is all about, then label me a fuddy-duddy and put me to one side, thank you very much. The thing I really draw the line at, though, is the proposition that the distances travelled by a body moving with a uniformly accelerating velocity are to one another as the squares of the time. Now, this is just nonsense. They aren't at all. I don't know what they are, but I'll bet you any money you like they're not that. I might be wrong, of course. I was away the day they did science at school. Anyway, look, you've all been very good, so you can go home early today. Toodle-hoom.